You ready?
Great.
All right, Miguel, thanks for joining me on this podcast. CEO and co-founder of Capchase. How you doing?
Very well, Andrew. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to talk with you about MicroAcquire and Capchase.
Yeah, we've been chatting back and forth for a while now, and obviously I'm a huge fan of any company that helps save equity for startups. So just to start off, do you want to give a background on Capchase, what you guys do, how you guys got started, background story?
Yeah, perfect. So what we do essentially is we help founders to grow without getting diluted and using their own revenues, their own future revenues as the main source of financing, right? So imagine a company, $1 million in ARR, they're burning 100K a month. So instead of just like burning equity money, they can start to bring that future ARR to today to fund growth and operations now. So it's funny how we started because it was like a little bit, all serendipitous. We had been working in a SaaS company for 3 years, taking it from zero to a few million ARR. And we were basically funding the growth with equity. And then when we left the company, we were going to do our MBAs and we wanted to launch something upon graduation. We decided to start looking at things and we didn't really know where to start. So we said, okay, what do we like and what do we know? And we really liked fintech and we knew B2B SaaS. So we started exploring ways to help B2B companies to either pay later for things or get paid earlier and kind of like not use the cash reserves to grow, but use all the cash trapped in different parts of the business. So after a few months of iteration, 4 months into the MBA, we came up with the idea of Capchase, which was, hey, there has to be a way, and we suffered in the past, right? There has to be a way in which SaaS companies can always get the cash up front from every single customer, so they can grow the business without using so much of the cash. And then we dropped out of school and just went and did it. So we raised around seed last summer and we raised a big A couple months ago. So
nice, congrats on that. How did you guys, so you guys founded the company August of last year, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
How did you guys think of the name? I'm just curious, Capchase.
Oh, that was...
Did you have like a huge argument over it or was it just like a one night? Because it's either like, in my experience, one or the other. It's like, it's this or you kind of have a list and you kind of go through it. How did you think of Capchase?
So we had several names for the company. We looked at, pay.com, of course, that was taken. There was like variation of pay. So pae.com or pae.ai, like all the variations. But then every time we found a name that we liked, the domain would be taken. So we looked at, hey, what value do we add? Oh, we add runway, we add growth. And then looking at those words in different languages, So imagine runway in Sanskrit or growth in a different language to see if they sounded well. It was impossible to find something that sounded well and had a domain. So in the end, we just put like a bunch of words in an Excel. We cut them into pieces and just put them together. And then Capchase came to be.
Nice. I like the name. And I like that process too, because naming a business, it's important. You're stuck with it most of the time. So specifically, I want to talk about SaaS acquisitions and how you're financing those. Can you speak to maybe some of the recent financings that you've done for acquisitions? We can go into detail on how that works within MicroAcquire, but just from a high level, what are you looking to fund? Maybe a story if you have one of a good use case.
Perfect. So essentially, like what we're trying to do is fund acquisitions for SaaS companies without having to put a lot of capital up front. So if you think about it, when we work with SaaS companies to grow, essentially what we're doing is we're saying, okay, this is how much ARR these companies have. So this is how much money they're going to be bringing in month after month for the following 12, 24, 36 months, right? So then if we were able, that it was all our process, from our first product to the acquisition product. But what we were doing was the thought process was the following. If we're able to bring forward all these revenues to grow, then we could also bring all these revenues forward for somebody else to acquire the company, right? So a company, again, with $1 million ARR, if we were able to give them $1 million up front to grow, if we could bring the revenue from the following 3 years, we could just make all that cash available for an acquirer to buy the target company. And the way that it developed was essentially we're working with this pretty large SaaS company, around 25 million ARR, and they are doing a roll-up of the space. This is in like the marketing tech space. And they were saying, hey guys, like, I know that my credit cap is, close to $20 million, but now I want to acquire a company that has 10 million ARR, and the price that they're quoting is around $30 million. So how do we do this? Can you like analyze that company and see how much money you could up from that company, and then I can acquire it? Or what do we do? And after a little bit of brainstorming with them, we said, okay, let's look at the combined entity. What would the combined entity look like? So we look at the original entity, 25 million plus 15 million, that's a $40 million ARR company. How much money could we advance there? And then from that initial idea to the actual end product, it was a journey, but the end product looks like any buyer, that's going to buy a SaaS company, that has the opportunity to buy a SaaS company, can just connect very quickly, post LOI stage, the acquisition targets to Capchase. They get a quote instantly of how much money they can use to purchase the company, and then they just pay it back over 24, 30 months with
Nice.
the cash of the company.
I absolutely love that. I just got to say that. So I want to walk through how this works with within MicroAcquire. So I'm going to share my screen and just pretend I'm like an average user. And can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. So you're looking to finance companies on MicroAcquire with over $1 million in annual recurring revenue, correct?
Mm-hmm, that's right.
Okay. So I'm on MicroAcquire. This business looks good. And now I see this flag right here, which says request financing. Now, what happens from here? What does the buyer go through? What's kind of the process on your back end?
Okay.
What do you look at? What are some good things that you'd like to see? Basically, how could I get this company funded with you guys?
Yeah, so it was like, I think it was like a 1.3 million ARR company and a $2 million price, right?
Yeah, so this one is 2 million, 1.33 million in annual recurring revenue.
Perfect, cool. Yeah, so then let's say a buyer goes and says, I want to acquire this company, I want the financing. They go into the landing page, and then they would select the get finance points that would automatically connect them with me and one of my co-founders. Oh, actually, sorry, they create the user, and then we get an email in the background. And then we just set up a 5-minute call with the buyer. We just need to understand, who the buyer is, they have experience and so on, because being the acquisition, we just want to get comfortable with them. And in less than 24 hours, they connect the data from the target company, and I'm gonna just like use some back of the envelope calculation. But if they have 1.4 million in ARR, probably the amount of financing they could get for this company would be very, very, very close to 2 million actually, right? Which means that the buyer, if it's a buyer, that's comfortable with the financing terms, is comfortable with Capchase, they could be acquiring this company within 24 hours while using a tiny sliver of equity, right? So imagine instead of the usual process would be like, go to LOI, then go and raise some financing somewhere, and so on. They click on that button, they click on get financed, they create a user, they connect the target's data, and 24 hours later, they have terms and a term sheet of how much money they could be getting to acquire that target.
Nice. So pretty simple. Basically, click request financing. That kicks out over to you guys.
Yeah.
You apply for financing, and then from there you go and figure out what the terms are, and you work kind of hand in hand for, a way to make this acquisition close, correct?
Exactly. And then, like after the acquisition, which can happen like in 48 hours, whatever, as fast as the buyer goes, then usually what buyers do is they connect the target company again, and then as they're growing, they keep pulling forward more revenue to grow faster and faster and turn that into a flywheel.
Nice. So even post acquisition, you can help companies grow. So as they acquire it. Awesome. Let's do one more example. So I have another one for you.
Perfect.
So we got this company here. It's open to offers.
Okay.
Again, it's doing different company, but same amount of annual recurring revenue.
Yeah.
How would you kind of look at this and evaluate this?
So profitable B2B SaaS, open to offers, right? So pretty much the same, request financing. What the buyer could know beforehand is, again, they connect to us, and then they would get an estimation of how much money they could be getting to finance the acquisition, right? In this case, like they don't really know what the price is going to be, but they could go to the negotiation knowing that, for example, they could get up to 1.5, $1.8 million in financing. And then when you go to a buyer and you say, hey, I have 1.8 million arranged already, like what is the price? Like the buyer knows that, hey, like the odds of this materializing are much, much higher than somebody that comes and say, hey, I want to buy it, and then I'll figure out the financing, right? So it'll be pretty much the same. We just need the target company's data, and then we underwrite them. We give a value that we stand behind, and then just work together on it. But it can be like as quick as like going to a store and buying something. Like, that's what we want, right? Like,
the acquisition store might require.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I get, okay, that's pretty simple. So, for buyers that are looking to acquire companies on Microquire, you now have the opportunity to use Capchase for financing. So if you're interested, and Miguel, if I'm doing any of this correctly, feel free to chime in. But basically, we're going to be having these flags on all SaaS companies with over $1 million in annual recurring revenue. And if you're interested in requesting or applying for financing with Capchase, you would just go to this page here, follow the instructions. You'll hear back from the Capchase team within 24, 48 hours, and potentially get an offer to finance this deal with Capchase.
Exactly.
Is that accurate?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Right on, man. I dig it. I'm sure a lot of other people will too. So if people have like additional questions, I assume they just support at capchase.com.
Yeah, or actually, I would love to, to jump right on this. So they can send me an email to miguel@capchase.com, and Miguel is spelled Miguel. And I'll make sure that I jump on it, or if I don't have the answer straight away, loop them into the right person.
I'll put that in the notes on this video. So perfect. Well, that kind of covers it. Pretty straightforward. I wish I had more questions but it's super simple. Request financing, get approved, acquire SaaS companies. I love it.
That's right. Exactly.
To round it out, Miguel, give me a little bit about your personal background. Like, where you from, hobbies, favorite color, favorite book, favorite drink, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Madrid, from Spain. I'm engineer by background. I studied mechanical and nuclear engineering and never worked as an engineer in my life. I went down the consulting route, which I really didn't like. I was constantly trying to do things on the side, and I launched 2 companies before leaving consulting. So I was like doing it part-time. They were both consumers. So one was like a peer-to-peer lending, peer-to-peer renting of sports equipment, and the other one was like a marketplace for brands. Both achieved moderate traction, a few thousand users, a few $1,000s in revenue, but nothing much. And then I joined a SaaS company where I joined pre-revenue as the first person in sales and built and led sales and customer success there. Before coming over to the US and going to business school, dropping out, and doing Capchase. So yeah, quite a journey. I've been lived in, I think, like 6 or 7 cities by now, and now living in New York. Excited about it.
Nice. What's your favorite city?
Man, I don't know. I think it's influenced by the time I was there, right? But Munich, I studied there, nuclear engineering. Munich is just so nice. Everything works. Everything's pretty. But I think it was influenced by being a student. Everything was easier.
Yeah. Sometimes the experiences in a city can definitely influence your opinion on it.
Exactly.
I guess final questions. There's a lot of entrepreneurs probably going to be watching this. Any advice for entrepreneurs just starting out? Maybe they're working on a SaaS company. Yeah. Any key lessons or mistakes that you've made that you'd like to share to help people avoid, or things maybe focus on doing correctly?
Yeah. So I think that one thing that has allowed us, we made a lot of mistakes, right? Well, one of the mistakes has been
everyone does. That's part of the job. You make mistakes and you learn from them.
Exactly. We should have scoped better, like, hey, 6 months from now, this is how the team is going to look like. and then go and hire proactively those profiles. We didn't do it. So then we were finding like scrambling, like, oh no, we need a VP of marketing now, or oh, we need a VP of engineering. When in reality, we should have thought about that, 6 months ago. I think one thing that has worked really well in our case is that everything we've done first very scrappily, and with a lot of ops, a lot of like people behind it. And then once we see the demand and we see what works and what people actually want, and then we productize it really quickly, as opposed to not just spending like a ton of resources up front, productizing things.
What you just said is actually, one of the number one killers I've seen from startups that scale is they hire too quickly.
Yeah.
They just hire too quickly and increase the burn rate too quickly without really having a clear plan. But doing it kind of like in a, slower manner can reduce the odds of failure, because you can just create chaos. I read Paul Graham put out a tweet recently that was like, it's better to, if you scale too early, it's almost always fatal. But if you scale kind of late, but not like you found product market fit, you're obviously a little bit behind. You wish you had the VP of sales, VP of engineering like 3 months prior. You're still going to be okay. But if you hire those people without having like proper product market fit, it's going to be a rough time. So I think you did a good job, man.
Thank you. Let's see. We're still on it, but yeah, it's going out well. Thank you.
And then I always ask this question, but any favorite books or like musicians that you listen to?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about a book. I really love the Everything Store, about how Amazon was built and so on. And there are two things that I love. Yeah. Have you read it?
Yeah. Do you email your team question marks?
Sorry?
Do you email your team question marks? Do you remember the part in the book where if you get an email from Jeff Bezos, he just forwards you an email and it's just got a question mark. And if you get that, if you get that on like a Saturday, your weekend's done. You go in Monday and you're like, sorry, Jeff.
Yeah.
great book. But sorry, go on.
I know two things there. One is the flywheel, how they discover the flywheel. And that's something that I spent a lot of time thinking about. And, like, where are the flywheels in Capchase? I think one flywheel that's obvious for us, drawn from Amazon's model, is that if we work with really good companies, they perform really well, then our cost of capital gets lower. So then we can work with better companies, they perform really well, and so on. So it constantly accelerates. So I love that philosophy of finding flywheels. The second lesson from that book is how, by doing some things to solve your internal problems, you can end up doing new business lines for a bunch of customers, like AWS, right? Like they didn't know how to run their own warehouses. They did all these virtual servers, and then it became the largest cloud business in the world. So a lot of, philosophical lessons there.
Yeah, that's a great book. Miguel, pleasure having you on the podcast. If people want to contact you, aside from your email, miguel@capchase.com, where's other good spots? LinkedIn, Twitter?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, anything, I'll jump on it straight away.
Sounds good. All right, man. Well, thanks for joining me on this podcast. And looking forward to doing some SaaS acquisitions with you.
Oh yeah, let's do it. It's been